Hello. We are learning the Chelek Yud Beis Sicha of Chag HaPesach. This Sicha is going to be discussing the Mishnah and the Halacha of B'chol Der V'der Chayiv Adam Lireis Es Atzmai Ki'ilu Hu Yatsa Mitzrayim. In every generation, a person is obligated to see themselves as if they are going out or have gone out of Mitzrayim. Now this is brought in various places, in the Mishnah, in the Rambam, in the Alter Rebbe, Shulchan Aruch, in the Haggadah, to name a few. And today we're going to look at these various different places where this is discussed and analyze the differences and the messages that we take from the differences. So to make it easier for us, rather than start with a Sicha, I thought I would begin by first reading and pointing out some of the differences in these Mekayris, in these sources. I actually have a sheet, I'll make it available, that sort of highlights the differences. So we'll mention the Mishnah, which I just actually mentioned. The Mishnah is very famous. It's one of the Yud Beis Psukim, Umamari Razal, that the children and therefore the adults all learn. B'chol der v'der chayiv adam lirois es atzmai ki'ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim. And the Mishnah continues, shenemar v'igalta levincha b'yemahu lemer b'avur zeh asa Hashem li b'tzeisi mitzrayim. So we see, you tell your son that Hashem did this for me, he took me out of Mitzrayim, and saying that we're talking now and reminding ourselves of the Yidden going out of Mitzrayim. The Rambam in Hilchis Chametz Umatzah in the Sefer Mishnah Torah, which is the Sefer of Halacha, writes Chayiv Adam leharois es atzmai, not lirois but leharois, ki'ilu hu ba'atzmai yotza ata mishibud Mitzrayim. Shenemar ve'isanu haitzi misham ve'goymer. And then the Rambam continues, in addition to the fact that he said laharois and said mishibud Mitzrayim, and brought a pasuk of Eisano Haitzi Misham, which is different than V'yigal Levincha, also continues and says Val Davar Zeh Tziva HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Teira V'Zacharta Ki Eved HaYisa, brings the pasuk of V'Zacharta Ki Eved HaYisa and explains Keleimar Ki'ilu Atar Ba'atzmecha HaYisa Eved V'Yatzasa L'Cheiris V'Niftas, as if you yourself were the slave and you went out to you free and you were redeemed. So the Rambam makes those small changes. He says laharis instead of lirois. He says be'atzmai. He says mishibud Mitzrayim. Then he brings the pasuk v'zachart. In the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, he also seems to be quoting the Rambam by saying chayiv adam laharois es atzmai, not lirois like the Mishnah. Kilu ata yoytze mishibud Mitzrayim. He adds the word mishibud like the Rambam, but over here he brings a different raya. Shenemar ba'avur zeh asa Hashem li b'tzeisi mitzrayim, which is very similar to the raya of the Mishnah, and not like the raya of the Rambam. And then he continues like the Rambam does. Val davar zeh tziva HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'zacharta ki eved HaYisa, but he adds the word b'mitzrayim. Ki'ilu ata ba'atzmecha HaYisa b'mitzrayim, again adds the word b'mitzrayim, which the Rambam does not say eved. V'nivdis v'yatzas l'cheiros, which again we'll see later is also a drop different. So the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch is very similar, except that he adds the words. He brings a different raya, b'avur zeh instead of Eisano Haitzi Misham, and he adds the word b'mitzrayim 2 times, and then v'nivdis v'yatzas l'cheiros he says also a little bit differently. So there's also the Haggadah, but we'll see that in the Sicha. So here you have the Mishnah, the Rambam, and the Alter Rebbe, as I said before, the Sicha is going to delve into what we're learning from these Mekayris and why they are different. Eis Aleph. Kasav Rambam v'Zelashoni, the Rambam writes, this is in Hilchos Chametz Umatzah in Halachas, B'chol der v'der chayev adam laharois etz atzmai ki'ilu hu ba'atzmai yatsa ata mishibud Mitzrayim. In every generation, a person must show himself, exhibit himself, as if he himself has now gone out from the slavery in Mitzrayim. Umevi raya lezeh, and the Rambam brings a raya, a proof, mimashakasav ve'isanu heitzi misham, umimashakasav v'zacharta ki eved HaYisa, 2 proofs, one from the pasuk ve'isanu heitzi misham, and another from the pasuk v'zacharta ki eved HaYisa. As the rayas, the proofs will be discussed more at length in Seif Gimel. Hine, Mocker din zeh, b'chol der v'der chayev v'chulu. The Mocker of this din, hu k'mesh mitzayim b'magid Mishnah, me Mishnah b'pesachim. As the Magid Mishnah, which is one of the commentators on the Rambam, says that the Mocker to this din is in the Mishnah in Pesachim, where it says, v'tzarech bir. We have to understand. Nusach ha-Mishnah l'fi ha-girsa shel ofanenu. V'cheinu gam ha-girsa b'a-Mishnah shel k'tav yad ha-Rambam, the Nusach of the Mishnah. Both in our girsa as well as in the Rambam's girsa, in the Ksav Yad of the Rambam, in the handwritten edition of the Rambam, he says, Chayev Adam Lir Eis V'chulu V'harez Anav Gam Anav Kamin L'Dina, and it has a practical application. Kilosh Na Rambam Chayev Adam L'Harois Chulu Pirush Hasheni Masbek Sh'Adam Yira Ba'atzmai Kilu Hu Yatsa Mishibin Mitzrayim. If you say L'Harois, he has to show it. It means it's not enough that a person should see on himself that he himself has gone out of Mitzrayim, is to show it to others. So the Mishnah says Lirois, and the Rambam changes to Laharois. And it's even more questionable. The Rambam contradicts himself. In the Haggadah, in the end of Hilchos Chametz Matzah, the Rambam writes out the Nusach of the Haggadah. And he has the Bechol Der V'der from the Haggadah, and he writes the word Liros like the Mishnah does. But when it comes to the halachas, he writes Laharis. So not only is there a question on the Rambam that he changes from the Mishnah, the Rambam changes from himself. In one place he says halacha, he says Laharis. In the Haggadah he says Liros. This same question, the stira, the contradiction amongst themselves, as well as the deviation from the Mishnah, could be asked on the Alter Rebbe. Because case of the Alter Rebbe in the Haggadah, and so too in Tanya and Perek Zayin, he writes Chayiv Adam Liros, like the Mishnah does. Case of Chayiv Adam Laharis, but in Shulchan Aruch, in Hilchos Pesach, the Alter Rebbe writes Laharis, like the Rambam says in Sefer Halachas. So why does the Alter Rebbe in Halacha change from the Mishnah, and why does he change in his own words from the Halacha to the Haggadah and Tanya? There's another difference in the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe from the Lashon Mishnah and also the Haggadah, which is like the Mishnah. The Mishnah Haggadah Isa Ki'ilu Hu Yatzim Mitzrayim. The Mishnah and the Haggadah says very briefly, concisely, as if he has gone out of Mitzrayim. The Lashon Rambam Admorazakin, the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam, he Ki'ilu Hu Be'atzmei Yatsa Ata Mishibud Mitzrayim. And he says in the Ha'ara that the Alter Rebbe doesn't say the word Be'atzmei, doesn't say the word Yotzei, but it says Yotzei instead of Yatsa, but it does say Ata, and it does say Mishibud Mitzrayim. So like this. The addition of the word Be'atzmei or Ata, Al Kolpanim Eina Shinui Be'ikar Ha'inyan. It's not really a change in the primary message. V'raktesis hadgasha beki'ilu hu yatsa, shapirish bezahu ki'ilu hu be'atzmei yatsa Ata. The adding of the word Ba'atzmai and Ata is just an extra emphasis. Instead of saying Kilu Hu Yatsa, Hu Ba'atzmai Yatsa Ata. And not just he went, but he himself is going now. So it's just an extra emphasis, but it doesn't change the main message. So still on the words of Ba'atzmai and Ata, if it's an extra emphasis, why don't the Alter Rebbe and Rambam add this in the Haggadah? Ki HaPesach b'chol der v'der sheba'Haggadah hi artakas lashon HaMishnah u'ki HaPesach lefichach anachna chayav m'chulus l'achreha u'meilei makam l'shanis. Because in the Haggadah they're quoting the Mishnah, as the next piece lefichach we're going to see later is also connected to b'chol der v'der, also a quote from the Mishnah, and therefore he says it exactly as the Mishnah says it, so he's not trying to emphasize. But in the halacha, he is trying to emphasize. So we're not going to focus on the words Yatsa and Ata. But how about the word Mishibud? Aval b'hod the kasva Yatsa Ata Mishibud Mitzrayim tzarechiyun. Loshna Mishnah Chayev Adam Liris Chulu Kilu Hu Yatsa Mitzrayim. Mas Musa Yish Tzarech Liris Es Atzmei Kilu Yatsa Mi Eretz Mitzrayim. The fact that the Mishnah uses the term Mitzrayim, Kilu Yatzim Mitzrayim, implies that a person has to see himself as if he has gone out of the land of Egypt, the land of Mitzrayim. If you say that he has to see himself as if he has gone out Mishibud Mitzrayim, from the slavery, implies that the emphasis here is on the slavery. Slavery, like in Egypt, could have happened and did happen in other times. So are we saying that a person has to see himself going out of Mitzrayim or going out of slavery? And the Chayra, the Mishnah says Mitzrayim, and the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam in their Sefer HaHalachos write Mishibud Mitzrayim, which have two different meanings, and which one is the correct one? Now, to continue with our questions, the Rambam says this thing, this halacha that a person should see himself going out of Mitzrayim. He concludes, as the pasuk says, that the Eibusha took us out of Mitzrayim, implying that we're part of it. The Rambam continues, and this is what the Eibusha commanded us in the Torah when he said the words, the pasuk. You should remember that you were an Eved, as if you yourself were a slave. You went out free, and you were redeemed. This is how the Rambam continues this halacha of b'chol der v'der. And this we're going to have three questions. Number one, the raya that we have in our Mishnah, in the girsa that we have, what's the raya for the pasuk b'chol der, for the halacha of b'chol der v'der? Because it says v'gal to levincha, ba'avur za'asa Hashem li b'tzeisim Mitzrayim, Hashem did it to me, implying that I went out of Mitzrayim. So why does the Rambam change from the raya that the Mishnah brings of v'gal to levincha and bring a different pasuk of Eisanu Eitzim Misham? Now he's going to say in the next paragraph that in the Rambam's Mishnah there was no raya at all. But it still doesn't explain to us what is the advantage of Eisanu Eitzim Misham over V'yigarata. V'yav sheba Mishnah shel Ksav Yad Rambam hanal. V'chein b'nusach ha'gadol shelo yishatik me'ha Mishnah. Lehuva b'chlal raya l'din zeh. Even though the Rambam's Mishnah, the Rambam's handwritten edition of the Mishnah, and in the Haggadah that the Rambam writes, he doesn't bring a raya at all. It's still, we still have to understand, even though the Rambam does not have this girsa in the Mishnah, we still have to understand why did the Rambam go with Ve'isanu Eitz Misham. Clearly, the pasuk of V'gal to Levincha is a working raya because the Mishnah in some girsais brings it. The Alter Rebbe also brings it. We're going to see later. So clearly, it's a good raya. So why, even if the Rambam didn't have the Mishnah to look it up to take from the Mishnah, he had a clean slate. Why does he go for the pasuk Ve'isanu Eitz Misham? What is the advantage of Ve'isanu Eitz Misham over the pasuk of V'galata? Beis, second question on the Rambam. Madua eine mistapek Rambam beichachasim yakasav Ve'isanu Eitz Misham v'gemar u'maybe gam v'zacharta ki'avad yisa. Why does the Rambam bring two rayas? One from Ve'isanu Eitz Misham and then another one from v'zacharta. Gimel. This is an interesting question. Halacha b'chol der v'der v'chulu sheberamam sham he k'chol halacha sheperek zeh b'negei alachiyuv delil chamish asar b'nissen. The halacha that the Rambam is talking about specifically, it's in Hilchas Pesach, it's talking about the night of the Seder, and it's talking about the night of Tezvav Nissen, the night preceding Tezvav Nissen, which is the night of the Seder. Like the Rambam continues immediately in the next halacha. When a person sits down to have a meal on this night, which means he's talking about Leil, the night of Pesach. When you move on, this tzivui, based on the pasuk of V'zacharta, that a person should always see themselves as if they are an Eved who went out free. There's no specific time in the year where this chiyuv is more applicable than others. And he brings in the parentheses, Shehutam Shmira Shabbos. In Parshas Va'eschanan, he brings a reason why a person should keep Shabbos, because we should remember that we were taken out of Mitzrayim. The mitzvah that you're supposed to give a gift a parting gift, a severance gift to an Eved or an Amma that leaves after working for you. It says that you should remember that you were an Eved in Mitzrayim and you went out. So there's other halachas that are not negayah to Pesach, which means that throughout the year there's a mitzvah of v'zacharta. To show as if he himself has gone out now from the slavery in Egypt. It applies specifically to the night of the Seder. So why is the Rambam bringing a raya to the Leila Seder from v'zacharta, which applies to other times of the year as well? So those are our questions on the Rambam and on the Alter Rebbe together. Because these are things that the Alter Rebbe says together with the Rambam, very similar to the Rambam, and therefore these questions apply on the Alter Rebbe and on the Rambam as they deviate, so to speak, from the Mishnah. At this point, we're going to focus on differences between the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe. See, why does the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam, why do they end up with differences in their halacha? Maybe this is also brought in by the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch. When he discusses the makar, the origin of this halacha in Torah. The pasuk from which this din is learned, the Alter Rebbe changes from what the Rambam writes. Even though generally the Alter Rebbe is copying this halacha from the Rambam as it is noted on the side of the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch. But there's a difference here. Harambam Kesev Shemakar Muvulelsiv Gimel Shemakar Allah Chazum Ekasav Esan Heksim Misham V'ilu Rabbeinu Azakin Kesev Shnemer Bavazas Hashem Libesesim Mitzrayim. So even though seemingly the Alter Rebbe is copying over from the Rambam, nevertheless, when it comes to the makar, the Alter Rebbe changes, and the Rambam wrote the pasuk of Esan Heksim Misham, and the Alter Rebbe writes the pasuk of Ba'avur Zeh also Hashem Libesesim Mitzrayim. Why the Alter Rebbe does this is understood. Rabbeinu Azaken Severuk Mishmaitik Benusach Haggadah Shalei Shagirsa Ha'ikris Mishnah Hanal Hi Kagirsa Sheberei Vasvarim B'chal Der V'der Chulu Shenemar V'yigal Talavincha B'yemahu Leimer Bavur Zas Hashem Libesesim Mitzrayim. The Alter Rebbe holds that the Girsa of the Mishnah is not like the Rambam, but there is a makar written into the Mishnah, and the makar is V'yigal Talavincha, which continues with Bavur Zeh also Hashem Li B'tzesim Mitzrayim. The Lake gives us a Rambam Shabbat Mishnah over Ireland in Zeh. Not like the Rambam who holds that in the Mishnah there's no raya for this din. The Loch in case of Gam Shulchan Inshallah Chazu Nil Medes Me'akasav Bavur Zas Hashem Li B'Tzesim Mitzrayim. So therefore the Alter Rebbe, following his shita that the Mishnah does have a raya, the Alter Rebbe follows that raya and writes that raya in the Shulchan Aruch. But we have to understand why taka is there a difference in the girsa. Why does the Rambam not geiris this raya and the Alter Rebbe is geiris this raya? And because of that, the Alter Rebbe brings this raya in Shulchan Aruch, and the Rambam brings a different raya in his Sefer HaHalachas. Another question on the Alter Rebbe. Maybe Admar Azaken rak bavur zas Hashem li b'tzeisim mitzrayim umash mitatevis v'gal tolavincha b'yemu u'leimer shavru v'b'mishnah. I mentioned in the beginning that I think it's very kedai to either use a sheet like this that lays out the differences, or to use the source sheets, or to actually open the Svarim. Either way, but to have the sources in front of you, because some of these nuances are hard to follow unless you're seeing the source. Here, they're asking a very simple question on the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe is quoting the Mishnah. The Mishnah brings the raya. The Mishnah starts with the pasuk V'yigal Talavincha B'yemahu Leimer Ba'avur Zeh Asa Hashem Li. When the Alter Rebbe brings this raya, he skips the words V'yigal Talavincha B'yemahu Leimer, and he starts with the words Ba'avur Zeh Asa Hashem Li. So the question is, why does the Alter Rebbe omit these few words from the pasuk, which are brought in the Mishnah, and in the Sefer HaHalachas starts from Bavur Zeh? V'ein leimar Sharaya dad murazokin. He leila achiv lahares b'chol der v'der. Ki'im rak al zesham mitzias tiyatzias mitzrayim yeshna b'chol der v'der. This paragraph is going to be important later on. But here he's separating between the reality that Yitzias Mitzrayim takes place every single generation, and the chiyuv on the person to see or to be seen as going out of Mitzrayim. So one can say that the Alter Rebbe's raya is on the Mitzias, is on the reality that Yitzias Mitzrayim exists in every generation. V'lochin mashmit ad v'yigal levincha. Therefore, he skips Vigar de Levincha because it's not about the person talking to his child about it and talking about it or talking about his experience, but rather it's about telling us Asa Hashem Li, Bavur is Asa Hashem Li, that Hashem is doing it to me, did it to me, and continues to do it to me today. In other words, he wants to suggest that being that we're talking about a Metzias, a reality, we start from Bavur Za'asa Hashem Li, which is talking about the reality, and not about the chiyuv of the person to talk to his kids about it. So we can't say that's why the Alter Rebbe takes it out. First of all, why not? Why would the Alter Rebbe only focus on the Metzius and not on the obligation of the Vigal to Levincha? Or rather, the obligation to see and to be seen as one is going out of Mitzrayim. But in addition to that, the fize havele lohavirak osa Hashem li b'tzeisim Mitzrayim ulahashmit gematevis ba'vurza. If you're focusing on the reality of Hashem did this, then you have to start from osa Hashem li, not from ba'vurza. So either you have to start from vigal to levincha, or you have to start from osa Hashem li. And now we have another. And I say we have another difference or set of differences between the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam. But these are a little bit more basic. That the Eibusher commanded us this concept in the Torah. The words in the pasuk for Zachar to give these. The Rambam explains, as if you yourself wasn't Evet, were an Evet. The Alter Rebbe's Lashon is Valdover Zetzi V'Hakadosh Baruch Hu V'Zacharta Ki Eved Yisa B'Mitzrayim emphasized Kilu Ata B'Atzmecha Yisa B'Mitzrayim emphasized Eved. The Alter Rebbe adds in twice the word B'Mitzrayim, which the Rambam does not say. And based on the fact that we know the Alter Rebbe was careful, was specific with his Lishonei Hazav, with his golden lashon. In every single word of Shulchan Aruch Nira, but it is clear. The fact that the Alter Rebbe changes from the Rambam and adds the word Mitzrayim. Both when he quotes the pasuk for Zacharta, that he says Zacharta ki eved ayisa b'Mitzrayim. And also when he explains Ki'ilu ata ba'atzmecha hayisa b'Mitzrayim eved. The Alter Rebbe clearly is teaching us to let us know sha'achiyuv de lahares as atzmeyu leirak sheyira Ki'ilu ata ba'atzmecha hayisa eved stam. Ki'im sheyira Ki'ilu ata ba'atzmecha hayisa b'Mitzrayim eved. The Alter Rebbe is trying to say that it's not enough to see myself as if I was a slave, but I have to see myself as if I was a slave in Mitzrayim. She'avdus to Mitzrayim, avdus miyuchedes. It was a unique type of slavery. Befarach v'chulu was avedus perach, etc. The Alter Rebbe holds that this detail is actually a mandatory aspect of the mitzvah. If a person was to imagine as if he has gone out of slavery, not slavery from Egypt, he was not yotze his obligation. So the Alter Rebbe says b'Mitzrayim, and the Alter Rebbe is medayik in every single word. Clearly the Alter Rebbe is saying that you have to consider yourself going out of Mitzrayim, out of the Avdus of Mitzrayim. How does the Alter Rebbe know to argue with the Rambam? Ulechadish, and to introduce how does the Alter Rebbe know this? That the person has to see himself. It's not enough to see yourself as if you've gone out of slavery, but you have to see yourself as if you've gone out of slavery from Egypt. So that's our next question. And finally, Gam Tzarech L'Havin Lashon Rambam. Again, if you look specifically in the source, you will see that the Rambam says the words of Yatzasa L'Cheiros V'Nivdeisa. First Cheiros and then V'Nivdeisa. The Rabbeinu Hazakim Mishadem Lashon Rambam. The Alter Rebbe changes V'Cheisev V'Nivdeisa V'Yatzas L'Cheiros. Alter Rebbe writes first V'Nivdeisa and then Yatzas L'Cheiros. And the question is, why does Alter Rebbe change from the Lashon HaRambam? So these are our questions. Why does the Alter Rebbe, why is there a difference in the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe from the Mishnah? Why is there a difference in the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe from the Halachas to the Haggadah? Why does the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe add why do the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe add the word Mishibud Mitzrayim? Why does the Rambam bring the pasuk of V'Zacharta? Why does the Rambam bring the pasuk Ve'isanu Haitzi if the Mishnah has the pasuk of V'Galta Levincha? Why does the Rambam bring another raya of V'Zacharta? Why does the Rambam bring a raya of V'Zacharta if V'Zacharta applies all year? And then we have a question on the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe. The number one, the Alter Rebbe brings the raya from the pasuk V'Bavur Zah Hashem Li B'Tzeisim Mitzrayim, unlike the Rambam. And the Alter Rebbe is Bavur Zeh, starts from the words Bavur Zeh, which is different than the Mishnah. And then the Alter Rebbe also in the second raya of V'Zacharta, he adds the words B'Mitzrayim, and also V'Nivdeisa V'Yatzas L'Cheiros, versus the Rambam, who says V'Yatzas L'Cheiros V'Nivdeisa. So the beer over here is like this. In Ois Vav, we're going to give you a basic beer, and based on this, all the questions will be answered. The din that both the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe are bringing is B'chol der Vader Chayiv Adam Laharis Es Atzmei Ki'ilu Hu Ba'atzmei Yotza Atam Meshibud Mitzrayim. So in this din, Mechadesh Kama in Yonim is being Mechadesh. He's introducing 4 novel ideas. Number Aleph HaMetzias, the reality. V'hu Shah Geula Ditzis Mitzrayim Yipulu Nimshechas B'chol der Vader. The Geula from Mitzrayim continues into every generation. Had the Eibusher not taken us out of Mitzrayim, we would still be enslaved to Pari. That which we today are free from Golos Mitzrayim, is because the Geula of Mitzrayim continues till today. The Eibusher took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, and that Geula continues to this very day. We're still free, at least free from Mitzrayim. So that's the reality. Number one, we have to know that right now we are free from Mitzrayim. Number two, there's an obligation on the individual. In addition to the mitzvah of remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim by day and by night, in which this mitzvah is fulfilling. Even when he just mentioned Yetzias Mitzrayim that happened to the Avos, to our ancestors who actually went out of Mitzrayim. So that's one. Remember it every day. We're talking about the ancestors, the Yidden that went out of Mitzrayim. On top of that, there's another chiyuv. Yesh chiyuv ala adam lireis lahargish kiluhu ba'atzmei yatsa ata mishibud Mitzrayim. There's a chiyuv on the person that he has to feel that he himself is going out now or has gone out now from Mitzrayim. Number one, there's a reality. The reality is that we're out of Mitzrayim. We're out of Mitzrayim because 3,000 years ago, the Eibishter took us out of Mitzrayim. But on top of that, every Yid has an obligation to see themselves as if they, as an individual, are going out of Mitzrayim today, right now. Ata. On top of that, not only is there a chiyuv to see myself going out of Mitzrayim right now, but the chiyuv de laharis, to be seen in that way. It's not enough that a person should feel it and see on himself that as if he went out of Mitzrayim today. He has to show this feeling. People have to see on him that he is experiencing going out of Mitzrayim right now. Dalet. The fourth chiddush is that this chiyuv, to see yourself going out of Mitzrayim and to be seen by others going out of Mitzrayim today, is not just in the story of going out of Mitzrayim and telling over the story in the Haggadah, but in every aspect of the night of the Seder. And in every aspect that has to see how the person is experiencing going out of Mitzrayim. It's not enough not just during the time that he's saying the Haggadah, all the acts, all the whole process of that night. וגם לפני זה הוא אמר ואילו להצי חולו והרי אנו חולו משובדם היינו חולו. Even though in the Haggadah he's talking about himself, hu yatsa, and onu mishubadim v'chulu was talking about himself going out of Mitzrayim. Mikol mokim in yetza dayin achiyuv de laharis. He's not yetza the chiyuv of showing, even though he's talking, I'm telling people that I have gone out of Mitzrayim. It's not enough. Even though, like we're going to say later, he's talking to someone. He's not just telling it to himself, he's talking to someone else. So it's not enough that during the recital of the Haggadah that he is experiencing and showing to others that he is experiencing himself going out of Mitzrayim. He also has to eat and drink in a way of chedus, in the way of freedom, to express and show this feeling that it's not enough to see yourself and to be seen by others as if you're going out of Mitzrayim now during the reciting of the Haggadah, but even in the rest of the Seder, even in the eating and the drinking of the Seder, there has to be So you have the Metzias, the reality, which is technically the reality exists every moment of every part of the year. It's not just on Tezvav Nisan. Then you have the Chiyuv, which is on Tezvav Nisan, to see yourself as if you yourself are going out or has gone out of Mitzrayim. Then there is the Chiyuv that others should see it, and then there's Chiyuv that others, that it should be seen. You should see yourself and others should see you going out of Mitzrayim in every part of the Seder. So now he's going to tell us in Zayin that the V'zacharta is talking about the Metzias, the reality, not the Chiyuv. He's going to tell us that the V'zacharta is a second raya because we have to know both the Metzias and the Chiyuv. This is why the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe have to bring the pasuk of the Zacharta. And it's not enough of the pasuk, which is what the Rambam brings. Where the pasuk which the Alter Rebbe brings, the proof from the psukim of Veisano Heitzi or Asa Hashem Li. This is on the reality that this is what Hashem did. He took me out of Mitzrayim. So I know that the reality is Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, and I'm still going out of Mitzrayim today. Shagulu do tzis Mitzrayim, Pulunum Shechas b'chol der v'der. Aval ein mizeh chacha sheyesh chiyuv ala adam lireis ki'ilu hu ba'atzma yotza atam meshibit Mitzrayim. But we don't have a proof that there's an obligation on the person that he should see himself going out of Mitzrayim. Ki avsha yitzias Mitzrayim. Ki avsha yitzias Mitzrayim b'chol der. Even though the reality exists in every generation, mikol mokim yesh leimar sha'achiv d'schiras yitzias Mitzrayim hu rak liski yitzias Mitzrayim k'mei shayis l'pashas l'avayseinu. One could tell you, one could suggest that the chiyuv is not about me, the chiyuv is about the ancestors. The reality is that it exists today also. But what am I supposed to think about on Pesach? I could think that I only have to think about or talk about the ancestors going out of Mitzrayim. And not about me myself. We'll go back to the brackets in a moment. ובפרט שבו עד הפעם וזכרת וגמר, הוא לא רק להזכיר יציאת מצרים שאויש עליו עשינו, אלא גם על דבר זה, על העניין ויסונו העצי וגמר ועושה השם לי וגמר. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe adds, and the Rambam adds the second pasuk of Zacharta to tell us that we don't just have a tzivui to remember the going out of Mitzrayim that happened to our ancestors, but also the Veisanu Haitzi and the Asa Hashem Li, which are in these psukim that the Rambam brings, the Alter Rebbe brings, that pasuk, those psukim have to apply to me, not just to the ancestors. In other words, if it just said Vayisanu Haitzi Misham or Asa Hashem Li, I would think that the reality is that it happens today also. But my chiyuv is to think about my ancestors going on Mitzrayim. By saying V'zacharta ki eved Yisa, it's telling me that the Vayisanu Haitzi and Asa Hashem Li is not just a Metzias, it's also a chiyuv upon me to see myself going out of Mitzrayim. Let's go back to the brackets. Because in the Havamina, I would think that the Yechiyuv of Yitzias Mitzrayim, Schidas Yitzias Mitzrayim, is only to remember what happened La'aveseinu. V'av sha'atev Asa Hashem Li, bois be'emshech levigal to levincha, v'chein ve'isanu heitzi misham, ba be'emshech l'mashakasav lifnei zev amar to levincha. So the Asa Hashem Li is coming after Ve'gal to levincha, and ve'isanu is coming after V'amar to levincha. So from this, I would understand already that when I'm telling over to other people, I have to talk about myself. I would only know that with regards when I'm telling over the story of Pesach, then in the story I have to say, include myself. I could talk about myself going out of Mitzrayim then. In other words, I have to talk about the tzipor of Mitzrayim from the past and include myself. But the fact that I have to feel as if I am going now out of Mitzrayim, that I don't see from Asa Hashem Li or from Veisanu Heitzi Misham. V'kol shekain she'ein mizaychacha she'yeshchiv ala adam liros ki'ilu yotza atam mishibud Mitzrayim gam bishar ma'aser laila zeshlei beis minas Haggadah. For sure, I won't know that outside of telling the story of the Haggadah, I have to have this experience. Now, there's number one, I wouldn't know to experience this at all. I would just know that I have to talk about it, but I wouldn't know that I have to feel it. Number two, I wouldn't know that I have to feel it in the rest of the Seder. And this is the Havamin, and this is why it's not enough to say Veisanu Heitzi or Bavur Asa Hashem Li, and I need another pasuk of V'zacharta. That's it, both the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam add V'zacharta to tell me that there's a chiyuv upon me, that I should experience myself going out of Mitzrayim. Once I know from the pasuk of Zacharta that I have an obligation to see myself going out of Mitzrayim, from this I could learn that it's not just lides but also lahares, not only to see myself but to be seen by others. I will also learn from this that not only do I have to be seen by others going out of Mitzrayim, but I also have to carry on this feeling even when I'm eating, not just when I'm reciting the Haggadah. And this is Kitla, because we didn't explain this yet. Nois Ches is going to explain it. How do I go from knowing that I have a chiyuv to knowing that the chiyuv is laharos and that the chiyuv is in the rest of the Suda, in the rest of the Seder? So he says like this in Nois Ches. One of the things that is unique on the night of Pesach over the mitzvah of remembering Yitzias Mitzrayim the rest of the year, the Vigal to Levincha is the pasuk Vigal to Levincha, the mitzvah of telling it over to the children. It's not good enough that you should tell over Yitzias Mitzrayim to yourself. You have to also tell it over either to your son, as in the pasuk Vigal to Levincha, or to somebody else. There's a mitzvah to tell it over to another person. And it says in the brackets, that if a person does not have present a son or a child or a wife who can ask him the questions of the manishtana, who shoya la'atzma, he asks them to himself. It's an odd expression. He should say manishtana. What do you mean he asks himself the questions? But there's a diuk here. Since there's a chiyuv to talk to someone else, if there's someone who does not have someone to ask him the question, he has to ask himself the question. By asking himself the question, he becomes like a third person, or a second person rather, to himself. And then when he answers this question, he's answering to that mythical second person that asked him the questions. So it's a diuk that he has to ask himself the questions, because he's supposed to, if he can't do it for real, he has to at least pretend that there's another person there, so that he's telling over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim to another person. So now we have to realize this is a very important Tesafa, that there is a concept of Igal Telavincha. There's a concept that when I'm telling over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, I have to be talking to someone. I shouldn't be talking to myself. There's a mitzvah of telling it over to another person. And since we find in one detail, meaning to say in the fact that when I'm telling over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, there is an extra chiyuv of telling it over to another person. We learn from this, according to the Alter Rebbe and according to the Rambam, ala klal kulei, we learn from this prat of the night of the Seder to the rest of the Seder. Gam ala prat shetzarich liyes deyes atzmei ki'ilu hu yotza. Yeah. That just like I have a chiyuv to tell it la'acher, I have a chiyuv to tell it to another person, I also have a chiyuv to feel it myself. Not just to tell it over to someone else about what happened in the past, but to feel it myself as if I myself are doing it. And this is how I understand this. I hope I'm right. There's a seder in Ois Vav. First there's the Metzias, then there's the chiyuv. The chiyuv is that I should experience Yetzias Mitzrayim in my own personal life. Then there's a chiyuv of laharis, that not only should I experience it in my own life, I have to also, others have to see it in me that I'm experiencing it. So if I know laharis, if I know from Vigal to Levincha that there's a mitzvah of laharis, automatically I know, what am I showing? I'm showing the same thing I would be showing in a lirais. I'm showing that I am experiencing going out of Mitzrayim myself. So once I know from Vigal to Levincha that I have a mitzvah, leharos, to tell another person the story of Mitzrayim, I now know why do I need another person in order to fulfill the leharos. I now know that I also have to be able to get to the leharos by first being in the lirais as atzmai. First I have to see myself going out of Mitzrayim in order to show others that I'm going out of Mitzrayim. So once I have the Vigal to Levincha to tell me that I have to have another person present, I now know that there's a concept of laharis. From this I learn that there has to be not just a story about what happened in the past, but something that I myself am experiencing. And once I'm learning from one prat to the klal, I don't just stop by saying that I have to feel it and show it to others when I'm telling the story, even when I'm not telling the story. Once I'm going in this kav that the prat teaches me for the klal, then the prat includes the whole klal, even outside of the Amiras HaAgada. So now, from this pasuk of Vigal to Levincha, from this idea that there has to be another person present at the Seder, there's supposed to be another person present at the Seder, if possible, I now know that I have to have the full experience of my own life, which I have to show to the other person, and I don't stop by the Amiras HaAgada. I continue beyond into the rest of the Seder and the Seudah to experience as if I myself am going out of Mitzrayim. Al pia now yuvan gamdiuk l'sheni azav, and now he's going to use in these tests. He's going to sort of digress for a moment, if you can call it that, and show you a diuk in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch that is perfectly consistent with what we're saying over here, that the laharais has to continue into the whole seder. Al pia now yuvan gamdiuk l'sheni azav shel ben azak v'vashakesav v'shenamar b'avozeh asa Hashem li b'teisim Mitzrayim. This will also explain the diuk, the specificity, the speh. I'm not even going to try. The diuk and the lashon of the Alter Rebbe, where he says shenamar b'avozeh asa Hashem li. If you remember earlier, it asked that the Mishnah he says v'yigalat levincha b'yemahu leimer b'avur zeh asa Hashem li. And the Alter Rebbe skips the first few words and goes straight to the b'avur zeh. And he repeats the question. As he mentioned in the question, if the proof is to the reality that Yetzias Mitzrayim exists in every generation, all I need is that Hashem did it for me going out of Mitzrayim, that He took us out of Mitzrayim, and it still exists. It still affects me to today. For the Atei is Bavor Zeh. I don't need the words Bavor Zeh, which the Alter Rebbe does include. And if the raya is coming to teach me that a yid has a chiyuv to show himself as if he himself is going out of Mitzrayim, he should have included Vigalat Levincha. Especially after the beginning of his ches, that the whole chiyuv of laharos, of showing it to another person, comes from Vigalat Levincha. So the Alter Rebbe is coming after the words Chayiv Adam Laharis Asatzma. Kilu Yatzim Mitzrayim. If he's focusing on the Yatzim Mitzrayim and the Metzias, then he should have said Asa Hashem Li B'Tzeisim Mitzrayim. If he's focusing on the Laharis, he should have included the Galat Levincha like the Mishnah does. But as he said, there's a diuk. The Alter Rebbe is medayik in L'shoinei Azov, because he starts daske from the words Bavor Zeh. Ki al Yedei Zehu Madgish. Sheshaychus hachiyuv laharis lahakosu v'yigalata gerim mitzrayim ileila tzivui v'aprat l'divigalata. He is talking about the chiyuv of v'yigalata levincha. He is talking about the chiyuv, of laharis. But he doesn't start from v'yigalata levincha, because if he would, you would think that the chiyuv is lahara of the chiyuv of laharis applies to the Haggadah, applies to the Aminas Haggadah. So therefore, he doesn't want to show that to you. Instead, ki'im lebavur zeh. He starts with the words Bavur Zeh to connect the laharis to the Bavur Zeh. L'klolus hazman, all of Nemer V'Yigalat Levincha la'acher, to the whole general time when the V'Yigalat Levincha is happening, including B'shash Yeshmatzu Mora Menachem L'Fanecha. We saying that God Bavur Zeh Lo Yamarti Elo B'shash Yeshmatzu Mora Menachem L'Fanecha. The words Bavur Zeh represent the general time when the matzah and the motor are in front of the person. That during all that time, so the Chliyas Kol Ma'aseh V'Zacharta Yetzias Mitzrayim Be'efen de L'Acher. That the whole story, the whole experience of Yetzias Mitzrayim has to be in a manner of laharos all the way through to the rest of the Seder, not just in the V'Yigalata. So we've explained some of the questions. We've explained why the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam write laharos, because they hold that it's a chiyuv, not just to experience going out of Mitzrayim, but to experience and to show others that you're going out of Mitzrayim. That's why they write laharos. The question is, why does the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam in the Haggadah write liros? If the chiyuv is laharos, why do they write liros? So it says like this: according to what we said earlier, according to the above mentioned, that the chiyuv of laharos is on Pesach, and the chiyuv of the rest of the year is just liros. or Kasuf. Chayiv Adam Liris Chulu. Now I'll understand in that case why the Mishnah and then the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam in the Haggadah write Chayiv Adam Liris Av Shachiv Ugam Laharis. The intent of this passage in the Haggadah of B'chol Der V'der, it's an introduction and a reason for the next piske, for the next passage. Lefichach, therefore, because of B'chol Der V'der, chayiv adam liris atzmai, therefore, anachnu chayavim lehedis, therefore we are obligated to thank you on this night. In other words, with saying B'chol Der V'der, in order to explain to us why we're so thankful to Hashem, it's not here to tell us the obligations of the night, but to emphasize the greatness of going out of Mitzrayim. I want to praise Hashem. I'm thanking Hashem. I'm praising Hashem for what? For this amazing thing of Yetzias Mitzrayim. How amazing is it? The Yetzias Zui B'chol Der V'der. This Yetzias, this Yetzias Mitzrayim, this Exodus is in every generation. Mibli Hevdel, doesn't matter which generation. U'b'chol Yemei Der V'der, in every part of the generation. Shalachei chayiv adam liris es atzmei tamid kilu yatzam mitzrayim. And therefore, constantly, in every day and in every generation, a person has to see himself going out of Mitzrayim. In other words, because we want to focus on the greatness of Yetzias Mitzrayim, we want to focus on what's taking place every single day. And since every single day the chiyuv is only liris, not laharis, therefore the Haggadah says liris. Because here we're not trying to discuss the obligations on the person, we're trying to discuss the greatness of Yetzias Mitzrayim and its effect on everyday life. And therefore we can only use the word liris, which is applicable every day, not laharis, which is only applicable one night a year. So why don't we mention at all the chiyuv of laharis? Maybe over here we're saying liris because we're going to talk about the greatness of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Why not somewhere else do we not mention somewhere that there's a chiyuv of laharis? Just like we don't mention there's an obligation to drink 4 cases of wine. The reason why we don't have to mention the chiyuv is because we're doing it. We don't have to talk about doing it if we're actually doing it. If it's something that we couldn't do, it's a carbon Pesach, we're talking about the carbon Pesach because we can't actually bring a carbon Pesach. So we want to talk about something that has to get done because we can't do it. But if we're actually doing it, if we're drinking 4 cases, we don't have to say we have to drink 4 cases. I just drink the 4 cases. And so to the leharis, I don't have to talk about the leharis because I'm doing the leharis as a chiyuv. When it comes to B'chol Der V'der, I'm telling a story. I'm telling a fact. I'm describing something that took place, and therefore I'm about to thank and praise Hashem for it. Therefore, I want to focus on the whole year of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And therefore, I use the word liris. In Ois Yud Aleph, he is going to speak about the makar for the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam in Gemara. In other words, we said in Ois Ches that because it says Vigal to Levincha, this teaches us that it has to be La'acher, which is the Laharis. But the question in Yud Aleph is going to be, where do we find this? If it's not in the Mishnah, where does it come from in Shas? Move on. After all, the makar of this din is in the Mishnah. Since the girsa of the Mishnah is lirais, where does the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe take it from Shas? Where's their makar in Shas that there's a chiyuv of laharis, and the answer to this question is as follows. Amar Rava, the Gemara says, one of the things that a person has to say as part of the Haggadah is the pasuk ve'isanoitz misham. What is he adding? What is the addition of ve'isanoitz misham? Shem Mishnah. What is he adding on what's already being said in the Mishnah? The Mishnah already said a person has to see himself going out of Mitzrayim. That's the Ve'isanu. That's the person himself. So what's the addition of Veisanu? V'abir bazeh, and the explanation is Aloshan Veisanu, Aloshan Abmeida, Shebeis Amidasi Yesh Eit Mishu. When you say Veisanu, it tells us that there's another person there. V'zeu tzadich sheyemar Veisanu Eitzi Misham. Kipura Sharashbam. That's what the Rava means when he says he should say Veisanu. Tzadich lahare says Atzmik Yili Yatz Misham. He has to display himself. He has to show himself as if he himself is going out of Mitzrayim. We'll move on. Shadin tzarich sheyemar veisanu lashon rabim chulu. Hulei prat b'vigalat levincha, and it's obvious that veisanu is not a detail in vigalat levincha. Ki b'vigalat levincha gam kashem b'lashon yachid veisi haitzi yesh oid mishu. If he's talking to his son, he could say b'lashon yachid. He could still say b'lashon yachid. It wouldn't be a laharis. It would be all about me. But when you say v'isanu, us, he's including the other person in the experience. So he's not just saying, God just talking to his son and saying, Oisi Haitzi. He's doing it's a whole new thing. He's talking to another person and it's v'isanu. He's including the other person in this experience. And this is something where the harois is affecting the other person. The other person can also see it and experience it. That's a v'isanu. That's what, there's one more line here. That's why Veisanu Eitzi Misham is a totally different Indian than Vigalat Levincha, because Vigalat Levincha is a person talking about himself. Veisanu Eitzi Misham is a person bringing another person into his experience, which is the experience of Laharis. Umizar lemeidim aram madmorazak achiv de Laharis. V'shechiv zeh b'negia lekol ma'aser lailo zeh. And therefore the Rambam learns, and the Alter Rebbe learn from this, that the chiyuv of laharos, because he's saying v'isanu, which means he's including another person, and the yes that he's saying v'isanu is different than v'yigalat levincha, then obviously it's not unique to the v'yigalat part, but it's something that is part of the whole night, and therefore the Alter Rebbe and Rambam learn from this, yes that v'isanu is separate from V'yigalata. Obviously it applies beyond the V'yigalata to the whole night of the Seder. Okay? Now we have to move on to another question that we had on the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe, why they say the word Mishibud Mitzrayim and the Mishnah does not say Mishibud Mitzrayim. Habir bazeh sharam admaradak in case shachiv v'kilu yatzarak mishibud mitzrayim. Av shalosh mishnah hi v'chein atiku b'nusach hagad yatzim mitzrayim. What's the explanation why the Rambam and Alter Rebbe write that the chiyuv is that you only have to focus on the shibud and the slavery and not on the whole going out of Mitzrayim? It's very simple. Kiva shekavan asa mishnah b'chayiv adon liris kilu yatzim mitzrayim yikemesh mefarsh meram admaradak in shayide kilu yatza ata. The whole chiyuv over here is a person has to experience that he's going now out of Mitzrayim. He's experiencing something. The people around the table are seeing someone that moments ago was in Mitzrayim and now goes out of Mitzrayim. Everyone knows where he was. He wasn't in Mitzrayim yesterday or 5 minutes ago, for sure not. He wasn't in Mitzrayim. So a person can't experience himself going out of Mitzrayim. There's a mitzvah to not go to Mitzrayim ever again. So you can't really demand from someone that he should see himself 5 minutes ago, or a moment ago rather, that he was actually in Mitzrayim, if it's unrealistic and also against this mitzvah in the Torah. Therefore, it must be that the Alter Rebbe, when the Mishnah says went out of Mitzrayim, it doesn't mean Mitzrayim literally, because that's not realistic and it's against the tzivui. It must mean that a person has to see himself going out of the shibud Mitzrayim. That's possible. A person could have been, a minute ago, could have been a slave, and now he's a slave. He's not a slave anymore. So that a person could experience, could imagine and experience. So that explains the last question that we had on the differences between the Mishnah and the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe. Now we have to discuss the differences between the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe themselves. And you can mention three differences. Number one, Rama maybe a pasuk veisanu heitzi, but Marzaka maybe a pasuk bavurza. One difference is the Rama uses the pasuk veisanu heitzi, and the Alter Rebbe uses the pasuk bavurza. Beis the Rama case of Eved stam, but Marzaka case of Mitzrayim Eved. In the V'zacharta, the Alter Rebbe says, the Rambam says Eved, and the Alter Rebbe says Eved b'Mitzrayim, or Mitzrayim Eved. And Gimel, the Rambam case of V'yatzos l'chedes v'niftis. The Marzaka case of V'niftis v'yatzos l'chedes. The Rambam writes first Yitziyah l'chedes and then Pedus. And the Alter Rebbe writes first Niftis, first Pedus, and then Yitziyah l'chedes. Yeshlema, we can explain this, that this is based on their different understanding or the different opinion in the Girsa of the Mishnah. If you remember, we said earlier that the Rambam is not Geiris in the Mishnah any reason at all. The Alter Rebbe is Geiris a reasoning in the Mishnah. So he says like this, the Fikir says Rambam, Le'huva Mishnah Arayal B'chal David Derchai Vadam. Me'akasuv Asa Hashem Li. The Rambam, according to the Rambam, there's no raya. It says in the Mishnah, the raya is not there. Why does the Rambam hold that there's no raya for this? Because you could say that the pasuk of Bavur Ze'asa Hashem Li B'tzeisim Mitzrayim is as it is simply understood, that it was spoken to the day of Yetz Mitzrayim. In other words, if you want to say that I, a person who's living 3,000 years later, has to see myself going out of Mitzrayim, I can't use the pasuk Ba'avur Ze'asa Hashem Li B'tzeisim Mitzrayim, because that might have been spoken to the day that actually went out of Mitzrayim. It doesn't tell me what about the later days. Therefore, the Rambam brings the pasuk Veisano Yitzim Misham, Ki Boi Mefurish, because that pasuk says explicitly, as is said in the Haggadah, and continues, Leman Havi Eisanu, he took us out of Mitzrayim for the purpose of bringing us, to give us Esa Aretz, the Eretz Yisrael. Most of the Yidden going into Eretz Yisrael did not go out of Mitzrayim. Most of the Yidden that went out of Mitzrayim passed away as part of the Dera Midbar. So the Veisanu Eitzim Misham, who's the Eisanu? Laman Avi Eisanu, Lasas Lanu Es Aretz, to those who went into Eretz Yisrael. Clearly the Eisanu are those who were not going out of Mitzrayim, but those who came later. For the Rambam, this is a very good proof that even those who were not in Mitzrayim, not going out of Mitzrayim at the time, also upon them lies this obligation of the Chol Dervadir. But according to the Girs of the Alter Rebbe, then the Mishnah says, Shnema Vigar to Levincha, Hadei Mefurish b'Mishnah, Shegam Me'akasuv Asa Hashem Li, Geimer Yisrael B'chol Deir V'Deir. So the Mishnah, according to the Alter Rebbe, holds that Asa Hashem Li does not mean Kipshutei, that's talking about to the other Deir, to the Deir Tziyatzim Mitzrayim, but it's talking about even to the other Deir. The Haraya, the Mishnah uses this as a Raya to the B'chol Deir V'Deir. And therefore, V'lachim maybe Ad Morazakim Mishnachane Pasuk Zeshev Mishnah. And that's why the Alter Rebbe also uses this pasuk that was brought in the Mishnah in Shulchan Aruch, because according to the Alter Rebbe, he says, look in the Mishnah does use it, is a decharaya, that Asa Hashem Li is not Kipshuti necessarily, but could be talking even to the day that was not Yatzam Mitzrayim in that day, in that time. V'hinei. Let's take this to the next question of the word Eved b'Mitzrayim Eved or plain Eved. Chiluk zeh, ima inyan de b'chol der v'der nilman me'akasav asa Hashem li, oisha nilman me'akasav ve'isanu heitzi misham, yeshlema d'negia gam ladina. This difference, whether we're learning it from asa Hashem li or from ve'isanu heitzi, will have a practical application lahalacha. V'abir b'zeh. Ve'akasav ve'isanu heitzi misham yedim raksha inyan de heitzi misham b'chlalus, who gam b'derish lachre zayisanu. From the pasuk Esanu Heitzi Misham, we know that the following generations have an obligation to see themselves going out of Mitzrayim. אבל אין מזה הוכחה שזה מה שהישנו היציאה משם ובאויסי האופן שהיציאה תבסינו. But to say that it is an exact replica of how the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, that you don't know. V'yisonu hitzim misham, took us out of there. Doesn't talk about the details. So all I know is that I have to experience going out of there. But if he says li lashon yachid, mikiva shemer li v'leilanu, he personalizes it to me as an individual. Hainu she'akosov madgish shemedaber be'inyin kozeh she'rak ha'av shoyo b'mitzrayim yochel lahargish v'le'yabein. A son who could include father and son. But Li is only talking about the father, the one who actually went out of Mitzrayim. Muchach she'akavana hi le'esa yitziyah b'mitzrayim shoysa lavisenu. This proves that what kind of experience do we have to have today? The exact same experience that the Yidden had going on Mitzrayim. And since the pasuk is talking about later generations, because he says Bayemahu, which means I'm talking about that day, so I'm speaking in a later generation. So therefore, from this I understand that in every generation, I have to re-experience the exact same thing that happened the first time around. If I say Vayisanu Haitzi, I'm talking father and son. The son for sure was not there in Mitzrayim. So when we talk about us, we're talking about that we together have to experience going out of Mitzrayim. But it can't be the exact same thing because the son wasn't even there. But when I say Li, I'm talking about my personal experience, and I was there, the father, the first father who gave this over was there. Then I'm re-experiencing something that happened the very first time around. And when I pass it down to my children in the next generations that are still talking about this, they're talking about the Yitziyah and Mitzrayim exactly like the first time around. So there's a difference la halacha between the Yisonu Eitzim Misham according to the Rambam or the Asa Hashem Li according to the Alter Rebbe. How far does this experience go? Do I have to imagine myself as if I was going out of Mitzrayim like the first time around, or just a general going out of slavery? The HaPesach moving. Therefore, the Rambam does not say b'Mitzrayim. He just says ki'ilu alter ba'atzmecha yisa evet. Because according to the Rambam, we're talking about the pasuk ve'isanu eitzim misham, which is the general yitziyah from being in Evet, not necessarily being in Mitzrayim. Masha'ekim das admor zaken achiv lideis hu ki'ilu alter ba'atzmecha yisa b'Mitzrayim evet avdos miyuchedes to Mitzrayim. According to the Alter Rebbe, he's saying that you have to have the chiyuv is to see yourself actually going out of Mitzrayim like the very first time. Misham teaches us that there's a general concept of Heitzim Misham. But from the pasuk Hashem Li, like we just explained in the previous paragraph, Hashem Li tells me that this is something that I have to experience as it was experienced in the first time, Mi Mitzrayim. And therefore the Alter Rebbe uses the word Mi Mitzrayim, and the Rambam does not, because the Rambam holds that all you have to do is imagine yourself going out of Avdus, but not like you was the first time around. Which like the Alter Rebbe holds, you have to see yourself going out of Mitzrayim like the very first time. That's what Alter Rebbe writes, the word Mitzrayim. What about the V'yasas Lacheres V'niftis, or the V'niftis V'yasas Lacheres, which is our final question, or our final difference between the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam? Pianal Yuvan, Gam Zesh Rambam case of V'yasas Lacheres V'niftis, V'ilad Manazakin V'niftis V'yasas Lacheres. Based on this fact that there's a difference in halacha, in approach between the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam, and what type of experience the person is having. If the person is experiencing going out of Mitzrayim as it was that very first time, or a person is just experiencing going out of Avdus, this will also explain the difference of in the order of the wording between the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam. If you say v'niftis v'yasas lacheres or v'yasas lacheres v'niftis, and he says like this: the Rambam l'chashminta v'yevel The Rambam says in Hilchos Shmita v'Yovel, it says like this: that in the year of Yovel, when the Eved, the Avodim, would leave and go free, it would work like this. From Rosh Hashanah till Yom Kippur, the Eved did not go home. Nor do they have to work for their boss, for their master. In other words, they were still in the home of the master, but they weren't working. When it came Yom Kippur, Taku Bezdin b'Shofar, then Bezdin would blow the shofar. Niftiru Avodim lebatei, and the Avodim can go home. From this we see that there's two phases in every leaving slavery. Whenever a person leaves slavery, there's two phases. Aleph Yitziyah Mishibud, going out from the slavery, meaning to say from the malacha, he's stopping to work. Beis Chazara leMekaymai u'Reshusi Bakel, to return to his own place and be the owner of himself and everything. In Yovel, these two phases came at two different times. First Hashanah Yom Kippur. They get shichrur, but in a regular geula, when an Eved is let go with a document of release, they both happen at the same time. Tchila mishtacher, v'achar geitze mibeis ha'odin v'cheze lebeisei. Every shichrur is really like this. Meaning every time you go out, it happens in one shot. It's just that by Yovel it happens in two separate phases. That's why the Rambam says first Yatzas Tacheres and then V'niftis. Because it's a mitzvah to talk about going out of Mitzrayim. Ki the Yatzas Tacheres mefurish rak sheini mishubed la'adonai. From Yatzas Tacheres, all I know is that he doesn't have to do any work. And therefore, Moshe v'niftis, so the Rambam adds the word v'niftis. Shegam nifter leveisei, you can also go home. Ki pedus, pirush you avdallah, pedus, which means to be redeemed or released, is avdallah separation. Separating himself from the place and the ownership, the property of the master. So the Rambam is saying a person has to imagine himself as if he was going out of his avdus. Not only that he doesn't have to work for his eved anymore, but he could leave his odain and become his own balabas. One of the differences between avdus and Mitzrayim and any other avdus, any other slavery, was it was impossible for someone in Mitzrayim to go free. Only if an Eved would escape from Mitzrayim, and would reach the piachires, the rock that was literally the opening of freedom. That was a sign that if a person could reach the piachires, that he could not be held in slavery anymore in Mitzrayim. First, he had to run away from Mitzrayim, he had to escape Egypt, and only then could he become free. So if you're going out of Mitzrayim, the order is different. Yitziyah L'Chedus and Pedus is it was the opposite of Geula from regular Avdus. Regularly, first you go to L'Chedus, which means you're not working for your boss. And then comes the Pedus, which is the Niftar L'Batim, the going home. But when you talk about going out of Mitzrayim, as long as the person was in Mitzrayim, he couldn't go free. First comes the Pedus Hainu Yitzim and Mekayim Yerusha. You first have to leave the property and the ownership of the Otni, you have to get out of the borders of Mitzrayim. And only after that comes the Yitziyah L'Chedus. So it's a different process. Usually, first comes the Yitziyah L'Chedus, you stop working, and then you go become your own boss. By Mitzrayim was the opposite. First, you have to become your own boss by leaving Mitzrayim. Only then could you stop working. Based on this, we now understand the difference between the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam. Rambam case of Yatzas L'Chedus v'achach v'nifdis. Rambam case of Yatzas L'Chedus v'achach v'nifdis. But when it's in case of v'nifdis v'achach Yatzas L'Chedus. According to the Rambam, like we said in the previous Ois and Ois Yudalid, it's just Avdus Tam. And when you're a regular Eved, first you go Lechedus and then comes the Pedus, and therefore the Rambam says, V'yotzas Lechedus v'nivdis. Shenkin ladas at Monazokin Shechiv the Becharta Gemarhu. Kilu Ata Ba'atzmecha Yisa B'mitzrayim Eved. But according to the Alter Rebbe, that the Chiyuv is a Charta. He says, if you yourself were Eved in Mitzrayim, so if you're imagining yourself in Mitzrayim, and you're leaving Mitzrayim, therefore the Rambam has to say, the Alter Rebbe has to say the opposite Seder, v'niftis v'yatzas l'chedus, ki b'yitziyah me'avdus Mitzrayim, b'tchila b'dus, v'achach yitziyah l'chedus. Because when you're going out of Mitzrayim, first comes Pedus, leaving Mitzrayim, and then comes Chedus. But the Alter Rebbe, who's talking about literally experiencing going out of Mitzrayim like the very first year, the Lashon has to be different to be consistent with a person actually going out of Mitzrayim.